So, anyway, this case is one that I originally did not want to cover on the channel because it is a heavy one, and I am just going to trigger warning it at the beginning and tell you that there's quite a bit of stuff in this case, and if you are easily triggered by assault or unaliving, then this is not the case for you. However, I feel like this case is really, really, really important, and as we get into it, you will understand why, and of course, I will talk about it more at the end. However, I really want to get my content out there to people, so if you could please leave me an emoji right now before we're 2 minutes into this video. Number one, so that I know that you watched, and number two, so that more people can find me. I will love you forever. Anyway, this is the case of Catherine Daisy Coleman. Now, her name may sound familiar to you, and as I get into this case a little bit more, you'll understand why. So, Catherine either went by Daisy or Cat, which both of those is adorable. She was born in the small town of Albany, Missouri, on March 30th of 1997. Her father, Michael, a doctor, and her mother, Melinda, a veterinarian. Daisy was raised with her 3 brothers, and she was the second child in the family. In 2009, tragedy struck the Coleman family when Michael and Daisy and one of her younger brothers were driving to a nearby town for a wrestling competition. During their trip, their car collided with an obstacle on the road and veered into a ditch. Unfortunately, as a result of this accident, the head of the family was killed. After Michael passed, the Coleman family moved to the larger city of Maryville, Missouri. And Melinda continued to raise her 3 sons and her daughter all alone. And I feel like any single parent knows that that is not easy. At that time, no one in the Coleman family could have imagined what I can only call a curse that awaited them in the future. In the early morning on January 8th of 2012, 14-year-old Daisy Coleman regained consciousness outside in the yard of her own home. This is Missouri in January. It is ridiculously cold outside, even bitterly cold. The ground was frozen. The temperature was 0. Daisy is in the snow. Her hair is frozen to the ground, and she's wearing only a t-shirt and sweatpants. And at that moment, the first thought that flashed through Daisy's mind was, I must be dead. She couldn't stand up. She couldn't cry for help. Her speech was slurred and her words incoherent. She could barely even cry. Somehow, she managed to crawl to her front door and knock on it as hard as she was able. It's around 5 o'clock in the morning, and as though Melinda just knew, she heard this strange knock through her dreams. And at first, she thought it was the dogs, accidentally left outside and trying to get inside. So Melinda gets up, grabs her robe, and heads to the front door to let the doorstep. She's laying on the ground, barely conscious, reeking of alcohol, unable to speak, only able to cry. Melinda immediately screams out to her sons for help, and the boys quickly wake up, run downstairs, and carry Daisy's frozen body inside. At this point, the whole family is just horrified. At first, they try to wrap Daisy in blankets because they know that she's cold. However, upon closer inspection, Melinda realizes that Daisy's legs were probably really badly frostbitten. So Melinda fills the bathtub with warm water and asks her son to carry Daisy into the bathroom, to leave her there and to go out. At this point, Daisy is pretty much unresponsive. So Melinda starts to undress her daughter, and she sees these large bruises and marks on her daughter's skin. And at this point, she realizes, I'm sorry, I have a frog in my throat, that something terrible has happened to her only daughter. Carefully, she lowers Daisy into the bathtub of lukewarm to cold. I know I said warm, but Melinda, being a veterinarian, knew how to administer frostbite first aid. So she gradually increased the temperature of the bath water to slowly warm up her daughter's body. Fortunately, she managed to help Daisy, and soon she began to warm up. But her speech remained unclear and confused. My only hesitation in that whole scene is, if you put her in the tub, you are, and I get it, you're trying to save her from frostbite, I get that. However, you're potentially erasing evidence, unfortunately. So it is still hard for Daisy to speak, and Melinda is frightened at this point. So she calls 911. When officers arrive, they, of course, immediately start to examine Daisy. However, she's still under the influence of alcohol. Her mind is cloudy, and she cannot tell them what happened that previous night. So, luckily or unluckily, depending on how you look at it, the police turned to Daisy's friend Paige, who had also been at the Coleman house that night and had even slept in the same room as Daisy. So Paige tells the officers exactly what happened. On Saturday, January 7th, Daisy invited Paige to her house for a sleepover. In the evening, the two of them decided to watch a couple horror movies, and for extra effect, to drink some alcohol that they had secretly snuck from the Coleman family bar. Around midnight, Daisy began texting her older brother's friend, 17-year-old Matthew Barnett. She's 14, remember. Matthew was the star of the high school football team, and when he learned that Daisy was spending the night with a friend, he sent the two girls a message to invite them to hang out at his house. Daisy and Paige eagerly agree and arrange to meet Matthew and his friends around 1 a.m. The two of them snuck out of the Coleman house through Daisy's bedroom window and ran around the corner, where Matthew and 4 of his friends were already waiting. The boys accompanied Daisy and Paige to Matthew's house, helped them climb through a window there, and asked them to be quiet so that they did not wake up Matthew's parents, who were asleep upstairs. According to Paige, as soon as she and Daisy were in the basement, Matthew immediately started to ply Daisy with alcohol, and Paige was sitting nearby. Jeez, full pics. Paige was sitting nearby and watching her friend drink glass after glass that she should sober up. And the boys assure her that they will stay with Daisy and take care of her safety. And then they advise Paige to go home and get some sleep. Matthew tells her that he thinks that Daisy should sit outside for a while to sober up. And the boys tell her that, of course, they will stay with her and make sure that she's safe. They advise Paige to sneak back in the window and go to sleep. Paige believes them, and she agrees, and she leaves Daisy outside alone with these boys. She climbs through the window, collapses on the bed, and immediately falls asleep. Meanwhile, these boys pull Daisy out of the car. They get her up on her feet, and they hold her so she won't fall. She starts to get sick, so they take off her shoes, grab her purse and her phone, and one of them held her hair as she got sick. And then they carefully laid her down on the freezing ground next to her house, afraid that someone may drive by and see them, and unwilling to take the risk of it. They climb in the car and they drive away. Daisy lay outside in 0-degree weather for about 3 hours with only a t-shirt and sweatpants on, no socks, no shoes, and her hair had sick in it, and that is why it was frozen. So, back up. The police carefully inspect the Coleman family home and the surrounding area. In Daisy's room, they find 5 empty alcohol bottles. Outside, they find Daisy's purse, her phone, her shoes, and traces of her throwing up. They take her to the hospital for a medical examination, and they find numerous bruises on Daisy's legs and tears in her area. Several tests were taken, one of which showed that the level of alcohol in her blood was almost twice the legal limit. And think about how many hours later this is. So after a few hours in the hospital with them pushing fluids and things like that, Daisy regains consciousness, and she says that she doesn't remember anything that happened the previous night. She admitted that she had drank too much alcohol. She said that she had taken drinks from her mom's house and secretly snuck out to meet these boys. So around 11 a.m. on January 8th, just a couple hours after this incident, law enforcement officers locate Matthew Barnett, Jordan Sett, and Nicholas Grouse. Now, there should be another boy, but I don't know what his name is, and I don't know anything about him. So, I know you're like, Shannon, wait, you said there were 4. Yes, there were. They were charged and taken to the station for questioning. Now, during this interrogation, Matthew did not deny sleeping with Daisy. However, he insisted that everything had happened and that she had consented. He said that when he first met up with them, they were already drunk, and he originally denied giving Daisy any more alcohol, but he's 17 and dumb, and the more that he talked, the more that he admitted. So eventually he said that he had given her several shots of something strong to melt her icy heart. Matthew said that he used protection during the assault, and he had thrown it away Matthew's friend who had driven the boys and the girls to Daisy's house said that during the entire ride, Daisy did not stop crying, and Matthew expressed fear that Daisy's brother Charlie, the one that he's friends with, would hurt him if he had found out what happened. So it became known that just a few days before this horrific incident, Matthew had been at the Coleman house, and on one occasion he had even had a peaceful dinner with her family. So on January 8th, the police conducted a search of Matthew Barnett's basement where the crime took place. They seized the bed linens, empty bottles of alcohol, clothing, and several cups. During repeated interrogations, the deputy sheriff who spoke with Matthew was reportedly touched by this young man's story. At one point, this officer allegedly even suggested that girls often make these accusations to attract attention, and that perhaps this was one of those cases. He praised Matthew for making sure she got home okay, and that he took good care of her. Although, for some reason, the fact that this kid left her outside in the freezing cold didn't really seem, too safe, if you ask me. A few days later, Daisy's health had completely stabilized. Her life's not in danger, but she could not recall any new details of that fateful night. 2 months later, in March of 2012, all charges against Matthew Barnett and Jordan Zett were completely dropped. The prosecutor concluded that the encounter between the teens had been consensual. The video that Jordan had filmed could not be recovered, even though several people saw it, and said that it was Matthew kissing Daisy. During the analysis of the teenagers' smartphones, investigators found that Matthew and Daisy had been in contact via phone at least once a month. And in some of Daisy's messages, she kind of hinted around that she would take things further with him in exchange for some alcohol. Furthermore, an earlier exchange was discovered predating January 8th, in which the two of them had exchanged some pretty explicit, suggestive messages. After Matthew got released, it became known that he is the grandson of a powerful political figure, a man named Rex Barnett. Now, Rex Barnett is a former member of state legislature. I was like, oh, don't mess it up, and then I messed it up. Rex Barnett had served on the Committee for Criminal Law and Public I can't talk now. Rex Barnett had served on the Committee for Criminal Law and Public Safety, and he had maintained close ties with many prosecutors and law enforcement officers all over the state of Missouri. Matthew and Jordan were released, and the two of them continued on their normal high school lives. Meanwhile, Daisy is kind of hoping that the uproar in her nighttime adventure would, fade away. She continues to go to school, and instead of support from her peers, she's facing, open hostility. She got the star football player arrested, and people were mean. Most of Daisy's acquaintances sided with Matthew, and she was branded a liar, among other terrible, hurtful names. She instantly became this outcast, so she started to withdraw into herself and spend a lot of time alone at home. She once led an active social life, participated in sports and dance. At this point, she just vanishes from the public eye, and she was forced to quit the school cheerleading team suddenly burned to the ground. The police were never able to determine the cause of this fire, though rumors circulated that Matthew Barnett's father may have been involved in it. Sometime later, under similarly mysterious circumstances, the home of Daisy's friend Paige also burned down. But at this point, the two girls are not even communicating anymore. Over time, Daisy's story began to attract national media attention. She started to receive widespread support from people across the country, especially from people who had experienced similar traumatic circumstances. Thanks to this attention, she managed to reopen the case against Matthew Barnett. It went back to court, but he was only found guilty of leaving Daisy outside alone in the freezing cold at night. He was sentenced to 2 years of probation, and he was ordered to pay the Coleman family $1,800 in compensation. The other individuals involved in this case never got prosecuted. Daisy continued to try and live her life as best as she could. She constantly faced not only messages of support, but also anonymous threats online. She understood how unfairly people could behave. Each negative comment took a toll on Daisy's mental state. In 2016, when then 19-year-old Daisy was in college, Netflix released a documentary, and it was titled Audrey and Daisy. And I watched this several years ago, and I have been sitting on this case since then. This documentary explored the themes of assault, bullying, and online harassment, and the devastating consequences that it could have on the victims and their families' lives. Daisy was admittedly one of the main subjects of this film, and she courageously shared her story. However, the fate of the film's second subject, Audrey Pott from California, was even more tragic. Almost the same thing happened to Audrey that happened to Daisy in 2012. But unlike Daisy, Audrey was unable to cope emotionally with what happened. Photos of Audrey quickly spread online, both to friends and strangers alike. 9 days later, Audrey took her own life. The last post that she left on her social media read, "My life is ruined. The whole school knows. I will never live down this reputation. Everyone knows how bad I am, and I just want it all to end." Audrey could not endure the humiliation and bullying surrounding her. Her parents managed to initiate criminal proceedings only 6 months after her death. The perpetrators, 3 boys, were sentenced to between 30 and 45 days. Yes, I said days, in juvenile detention. Later, their families paid Audrey's parents about $1 million in moral compensation, which is absolutely horrifying. I'm gonna get aggressive about this case, I'm just telling you. So let's go back to Daisy. In 2018, Daisy is seeking a fresh start, and she relocates to Colorado. She secures a position doing something that she loves, which is at a tattoo studio. At the time, she's working on a second film, this one focused on her own healing process. However, in June of 2018, the Coleman family receives yet another devastating blow. Melinda and Daisy's brother Tristan were in a car accident while driving to visit Daisy. As a result of this car accident, 19-year-old Tristan passed away. The exact circumstances of that tragedy are really not clear, so I'm not really going to get into it. But after losing her brother, Daisy posted online and confessed that it was becoming harder and harder every day to control her inner demons. because she was desperate for help, but her cries went unanswered. On Tuesday, August 4th of 2020, Daisy tweeted on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it now, that she was afraid to leave her own house because of this man. She wrote that she couldn't even walk her dog or go to work because of her fear of this man. She mentioned that her appetite had taken a dive and she was afraid to even sleep. A few hours later, she made another post on Facebook stating that a man had come to her house and knocked on her door. She confessed that she was terrified and suspected that this same person may have previously stolen her house keys, meaning that whoever this person was, he could enter her home whenever he wanted. She also revealed that this man that is stalking her had stolen her photos and he had used them to create an online profile offering services under Daisy's name. Her mother saw this post on Facebook and she starts to panic because she can't get to her daughter, so she calls the Colorado police and begs them for a welfare check. At 4 p.m., officers arrive at Daisy's house. She opens the door and lets them in, and police officers sit with her for around an hour. She again tells them about this man who has been stalking her, but officers didn't really notice anything suspicious in Daisy's behavior. But soon after the police left, Daisy makes a video call to her boyfriend. I have no idea what his name is. I wish I knew part of this phone call so that I could tell you more about her state of mind. But during this call, she suddenly takes out a weapon, points it at herself, and pulls the trigger. Her boyfriend was so shocked by this that he did not immediately understand what the heck he had just watched. Can you even? The call disconnects, and of course, Daisy's not answering any messages. Terrified, the boyfriend calls 911, and when the police arrive back at Daisy's house at 8 p.m., she is already gone. One of the officers completely lost it at the scene, and there is video footage of this, and it broke my heart. This man broke down in tears, just crying at the sight of Daisy. She was lying in a pool of her own blood and completely unresponsive by the time they got there. Her mother, Melinda, announced Daisy's death in a heartbreaking social media post. She said, quote, "Daisy was my best friend and a wonderful daughter. I wish I could take away her pain. She never recovered from what those boys did to her when she was 14. It's so unfair. My baby girl is gone." End quote. Melinda wrote that she had fought for Daisy's life, for her mental health for years, and truly believed that she had done everything she could to get her daughter the help that she needed. She also confirmed that Daisy had indeed been being stalked by this man, and she had also recently learned that she would never be able to have children of her own. So yet another devastating blow to Daisy Coleman. After Daisy's death, the tattoo studio where she had worked was robbed, and the thief stole her sketchbook that was filled with exclusive tattoo designs and her tattoo machine. And if you think I'm done with this case, 4 months later, in December of 2020, 58-year-old Melinda Coleman published a organization that Daisy had founded to help survivors posted, Melinda was a gifted veterinarian, a devoted mother and wife, I'm gonna cry, and a talented bodybuilder who loved and believed in her children. The post concludes that it is no accident that she created some of the most gifted, passionate, and resilient children. Our hearts are forever with Logan and Charlie. The Coleman family was left with 2 sons. The eldest, Charlie, and the youngest, Logan. Daisy's charity organization called Safe Bay launched a fundraising campaign to support these boys. After Daisy and Melinda's deaths, it became known that Matthew Barnett's life and careers going great. He issued a statement expressing his condolences to the Coleman family, stating that, "I hope Daisy's story becomes a catalyst for change in our society. We must create a world where no child suffers from violence, where every voice is heard and every victim receives support and justice." This case I cannot imagine going through what this family went through. And these 2 boys, their parents are gone, their sister is gone, their brother is gone, and I just can't. So, it is absolutely crazy to me that these boys were never ever punished for this. They only got in trouble for leaving her outside in the cold. As an assault survivor myself, this case, and the reason I'm crying right now is because this is why people don't speak up. This is why girls don't admit that stuff happens to them. Because people don't believe them, and then people don't get in trouble, and you're made to seem like it's your fault. Oh, you got drunk before you went there, or you're 14, you shouldn't be hanging out with 17-year-old boys. You asked for this because you told him that if he gave you alcohol, you would sleep with him. Now, and this case probably is also affecting me because I watched this documentary, so I can hear Daisy's voice in my head, but I don't know if that was her first experience. It doesn't make any difference. It was something that was taken away from her, and it is horrifying to me that these kids just got away with it and probably are living these wonderful lives, and she and her mother basically unalive themselves over this. As someone who has been branded the liar, the outcast, I moved because I had no friends. The first time that I was assaulted, I was in the 4th grade, so I was even younger than Daisy was at the time, and my mom did the exact same thing. She made sure that I got all of the help that I ever needed, and I can't imagine Melinda's grief after Daisy did this to herself, and I can't imagine what the boyfriend who watched the whole thing had to go through after watching his girlfriend do this on camera in front of him. I think it was a video call. say something. Don't be afraid to go to the police and report it. I know that this case kind of made it seem like it's gonna make you an outcast or that people are not gonna believe you. But you know what? Who cares? Someone might believe you. Someone may do something to help you. In the case of that Audrey, those boys only got days. This is why the world is so messed up. Why is it okay? To me, that's like one of the most sacred things you could take from someone. And then to affect someone's mental health so much so after so many years that she just literally felt like she could not be on this planet one more second. I've been there too. And if you ever feel like that, you send me a message, because you are not alone, and I will talk to you for hours until you do not feel that way anymore. Please, if you are one of my subscribers and you're going through something and you need to talk, you are never, ever alone. As someone who, I feel incredibly alone, like all the time, so I get it, and I want you to know that I'm here for you. Like, I'm not a famous person. My tears are like running. Okay. Oh Lord, I'm a mess. I knew I was gonna do this. Look, you don't have to be ashamed. And you don't have to be afraid. And if you need me on video chat to go with you to the police station, or you need me to, if you live close enough to drive there, I will, because I've been there. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're alone. Okay, I'm gonna finish this video off by reading you, and probably crying some more. I'm gonna try not to. Daisy's obituary, because it tells you more about how she was as a person, and I really couldn't find a good place to fit it in the story, and it was written by her mom, Melinda. Catherine Daisy Coleman, better known as Daisy or Kat, died unexpectedly on August 4th of 2020. She survived by her mother, Melinda, and her two brothers, Charlie and Logan. She's preceded in death by her father, Dr. Michael Coleman, and her little brother, Tristan Ash Coleman. Daisy graduated high school from Albany R3 in 2015. She went on to attend college at Missouri Valley on a wrestling scholarship, which I think is so cool. During this time, she was the subject of the Netflix documentary Audrey and Daisy. After a couple years in college, she went on to pursue her passion of tattoos and became a tattoo artist. She was a co-founder of Safe Bay with her brother Charlie and her mother Melinda, and she spent time speaking at events about assault. Bystanders and fallout victims face drug addiction, PTSD, harassment on social media, and unaliving awareness. In high school, Daisy was an excellent student. She was a cheerleader and a wrestler. She loved wrestling, probably due to the fact that she had three brothers who all wrestled, and lived in a household of daily grappling sessions and takedowns. And yes, we had a wrestling room complete with wrestling mats. She was always very talented as an artist, and she saw art and beauty in everything. This all culminated in her work as an advocate. She spoke all over the country and even internationally. She worked hard on her movement, as she called it, educating boys and girls in middle school and high schools and colleges. She also discussed the difficult situation of being a bystander during an assault and how you could handle the situation to rescue the victim. She has literally helped thousands or even more people through her genuine concern for victims and empowering them. She never wanted the story to be just about her. She wanted it to be about the victims. Daisy was very passionate about her advocacy work, and she began writing music and songs and working with Ella Farron on the new movie Saving Daisy. She was always available to talk to victims, even if they were complete strangers. She would stop and truly listen. Saving Daisy is an inspiring and uplifting film about the path of healing that we plan to finish, along with 3 more songs thanks to Ella, also a co-founder of Safe Bay. Daisy spent some months on the East Coast with the makeup and art department for Amy Schumer's movie I Feel Pretty. She was asked to try out for a part in the movie, which she happily did. She really thought that she had no chance of getting it, but on her 21st birthday, Amy called her to say she got the part. Daisy was ecstatic and continued to be great friends with Amy. After that, she played the part of Sheena Starr in the Texas Death Tripping movies by Robbie Lopez. Daisy's last request was that the Coleman clan continue her movement, educating and getting help to victims of assault. We will honor her wishes. Catherine D., as her daddo used to call her, and bellow across the gym when she wrestled, had this to say about death. You're going to leave a legacy, no matter what you do. It ain't a question of if they will, but it is how they remember you. It was shortly after the Queen of Sweden invited Daisy and Charlie Coleman to speak at the Open Assembly at the United Nations in the fall of 2019 that she got the chance to change the world, and she took it. Her courage was for us as well as her grace, strength, intelligence, humor, and internal beauty. She had a spirit of pure light. The night of August 4th, we all lost some light. Because of our last wishes, we will add a semicolon and continue her mission and try our best to bring back her sparkle and light. As per her wishes, we will add some animal therapy to her advocacy. On the last day of her life, she told me that she just wanted to make me proud, as well as to continue her mission. So we will continue to light her path with her as one kick-butt guardian angel and her little brother sidekick by her side. Daisy and Tristan will live through us all and through you. We will continue her movement. You never could have made me more proud. I am beyond honored and privileged to be your mama. We all love you to the moon and back. If you or someone you know is considering unaliving themselves, please talk to the National Unaliving Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or text STRENGTH to the crisis line at 741-741. And if you or anyone you know is suffering, like myself, through grief and loss, you can call the Grief and Loss Hotline at 866-903-3787. Thank you guys so much for being here. this video wasn't as upsetting to you as it was to me, but I felt like I needed to get it out there. Again, if you ever need me, or you ever need to